to order the meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation. I just broke the rule that I told you. Turn on the light first. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission, our meeting of June 13, 2019. Candace, would you please call the roll?
Sashi McEntee?
Here.
Craig K. Murray is absent. Alternate Todd Moody.
Here.
Sloan Bailey.
Here.
Lou Caius.
Here.
Damon Conley is absent. Alternate Judy Arnold is absent, so empty seat. Dennis Rodoni.
Here.
Larry Loader.
Here.
Roll has been taken. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much, Candace. We'll move on to agenda review. Would anybody like to remove or rearrange any items? I have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Bailey, seconded by Commissioner Rodoni. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion passes. We'll move on to public open time. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the current agenda. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing or will be placed on the commission's agenda for consideration at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Is there anybody wishing to speak at public open time? Seeing none, we'll close public open time and move on to the consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull any of the consent items? Nope. All right.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Rodoni, seconded by Commissioner Bailey. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving right along. Okay, moving into the business items. Item number 3, Jason.
Jason Fried, your executive officer. Item number 3 is the election of the chair and vice chair according to Marin LAFCo's policy handbook. Every May or the meeting there following, the chair and vice chair shall be elected. If no one is elected tonight, the members who are in those seats will continue, but I would encourage you to actually have the election tonight if you can, because otherwise we'll have to call it back to the next meeting to have an actual election at some point. So it's up to you to decide who you want in those seats. Staff takes no position on this item.
Any discussion? I'd like to make a motion.
I'll move that we nominate and approve the same board as currently in effect.
Second.
Any discussion? Moved by Commissioner Bailey. I'm sorry? Moved by Commissioner Bailey, seconded by Commissioner Rodoni. Any discussion? No? Okay. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All righty, motion passes. Thank you very much. I appreciate your confidence.
Good luck and God bless.
Thank you. All right, item 4.
Item 4 is accommodation to former Commissioner Jack Baker. As we'll get into in a later item around special district elections, he is not returning to this board. So in front of you have a accommodation resolution to thank him for his years of service to this board. To the degree you wish to pass that, that is great. Unfortunately, we did invite him tonight, but he was not able to make it. He had other obligations, so.
Okay. Well, then I will go ahead and read this. This is a resolution of.
Mike.
Thank you. You need to keep checking. That's another tricky thing about these mics. Resolution of commendation for Jack Baker by the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission expressing its gratitude for his service. Whereas Jack Baker served the citizens of Marin County from October 2013 to May 2019 as both the alternate and regular special district member of the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission, and whereas his objectivity, honesty, and compassion in the practices of local government has earned the respect of his colleagues, representatives of other public agencies, as well as the general public, and has been an invaluable resource to the commission. And whereas during the 9 years Jack Baker served as alternate and special district member, his work with the Local Agency Formation Commission has provided the special districts of Marin County with excellent representation. And whereas Jack Baker devoted many hours attending commission and committee meetings to provide leadership, commitment, and continuity in order to achieve Marin LAFCo's purpose to encourage the orderly, efficient, and responsible organization of local government in Marin County. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of this commission wish to express their genuine appreciation and gratitude for Jack Baker's service on the Marin Local Agency Formation Commission and lasting contributions to the people of Marin County. I would just like to add on a personal note that I really enjoyed working with Jack and that he was a huge help when we were looking to fill Jason's role, and he was right there at the beginning when we interviewed you and brought you in as an interim, and his experience and knowledge in that time when we were short-staffed was really, really important, and really we couldn't have done that without Jack, so wanted to make sure to acknowledge that. Does anyone else want to say any words about Jack? Anyone want to make a motion?
I will only say that I would like to make a motion to approve this resolution, since I guess I'm the cause of Jack being eligible for this resolution. So I make the motion that we adopt the resolution.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Caius. Any second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Loader. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, I will close the public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you, Jack Baker, for all your work. Item 5, Jason.
Item 5 is acceptance of the annual audit report for fiscal year 2017-2018. We just received the report. It was in your packet. There were 3 items of mention from the auditor that he felt should be addressed by Marin LAFCo, and I would say this. The one thing to remember at this point is 2017-2018, the first 11 months of that fiscal year, I was not here. And over the course of doing this audit, I have been noting some of the stuff that that have been brought up to us. And I will add that if you were to do that audit today, all the issues that are in that report are no longer issues for us. I've worked really hard to make sure we have stuff. One of the examples I can give is we're not very good at keeping receipts or invoices for items. We now have invoices and receipts for everything. One of the reasons why you'll notice sitting at your desk every time now that you come to a meeting and you have to sign a little piece of paper saying you were here is so we actually have a receipt showing that what goes with the check that we send to you for your per diems for attending these meetings. So that was one of the things that came out of this audit process was us understanding that we need to be doing some stuff better. And luckily, Candace, that was actually something we used to do. And when Candace came back on staff,
Yeah.
she brought that back into place so we could actually have a better receipt system in place. So
We did used to do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so some of these things kind of fell by the wayside, and we've corrected all those things. So I feel very confident that we're in a good place. So what's in front of you today is to accept the report. It's just an accept and file. You don't really need to do anything else. Assuming you've all read it. If you have any questions on it, feel free to ask me. If I don't know the answer, I will get an answer from our auditor. The second part of this is, however, based on Marin LAFCo policy, and this is a discussion only. I'm not looking for like official approvals tonight for future audits, but based on our current Marin LAFCo policy handbook, every 5 years we are supposed to change auditors. This is actually the 5th year that Michael from RJ has done this, our audit for us. What I am suggesting and would encourage is because of the for lack of a better term, turmoil that has occurred in the fiscal year that we're in right now with the staff transition, with having consultants and everything, having someone who knows our system and knows us well will make an easier audit for us to go through because we won't have to explain all the little intricacies that occurred because Michael was around when all those things were occurring. And state actually says that it should be every 6 years you change auditors. So I would encourage, I'm looking for advice if we want to stick to the Marin policy handbook and keep it at 5 years and we will find a new auditor for next year. We can, at that point, we would either stay with RJ and get someone else in the firm to do the audit, or we can go out with an RFP and actually have a brand new firm come in and do it for us. So I'm just seeking advice tonight as to what the commission feels would be a good way to do it. And I will come back at a future meeting with it, either an RFP or a contract for services with RJ. I'm just trying to get a feel of the commission at this point on that part.
Any questions? Is there any any comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. We'll go into deliberations. Does anybody have any thoughts on the auditor? In other boards that I've been on, typically you just switch to a different partner within the firm, and that seems to account for that, which is something we could do with this firm. Especially since we've been in staff transition, it seems like that might be a good thing to do, but I'd love to hear what other people think. Judy?
I think the boards that I've been on, if you've been in there for a while and you know them and trust them, what we've usually done is kept them for one more year and then gone out for a new one.
Yeah.
It
For
seems to
a new
work.
firm or for
New firm.
New firm. Okay. Any other thoughts on that?
Do you have any adverse experience with them at all? I'm new at it, so.
Nope.
Okay, so seems like it would make sense to continue on.
All right. Does anyone want to make a motion?
So I'll move that we accept and file the audit report for 2017 and 18, and that we approve that we use the same auditor for the 6th fiscal year for the 2018-19 audit.
Commissioner Rodoni, that second part of your motion, we're going to actually bring back a contract to utilize them since that part is not agendized.
Okay.
So I
All
think
right.
we received the direction relating to bringing that back to a future meeting, but if we could just keep the part of the motion where we're accepting the audit.
Sure. So I'll amend the motion to accept and file the audit report for 2017-18.
Second amended motion.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Rodoni, seconded by Commissioner Bailey. And Mala, is that because of the wording in the agenda? Okay, because the staff report is correct. All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. And Jason, if we could also add to the policy committee agenda to look at that 5-year, maybe change that to 6.
Yeah, I've already got that note and was going to put that in
Yeah.
in that groups.
I figured you were on it. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. All right. Item 6, please.
Item 6 is currently right now, there is no deferred comp program. For those that aren't aware, deferred comp program is where staff can voluntarily have money taken out of their check, put into a special account. Think of it as similar to a 401k, but there are some slight differences there. Most people know what a 401k is, where we can have deductions made from our things pre-tax and put investments, and then later on in life when we retire, we can pull that money out, get taxed on it then rather than on it now. It's generally speaking, it's a better benefit for our staff. A lot of organizations offer either 401ks or what this is generally referred to as a 457, which is more commonly known as a deferred comp. Right now, the Marin County actually has a deferred comp program for its employees. Unfortunately, the way they set up their program, no one outside of Marin County staff can actually join their program. So what I did do is I sat down and talked with Nationwide, who is a very, very large company, financial services. They run the Marin County deferred comp program. And they could put us into a similar program. It's the National Association of Counties. That program actually allows any government agency that wants to join its program. As a government agency, we qualify to join that. They're very similar in nature, some slight differences here or there, but very similar in nature. So what I'm looking for approval tonight is authorization to, once we get some final questions answered, give me the authority to sign the program. There will be no costs to Marin County LAFCo for this. All costs in this program are borne by those who participate in the program. So if I, as a staff person, wish to be in the deferred comps program, part of what my investments in that and part of the investments that they make, they take out the administrative costs for that. There are a few questions that Best and Krieger gave us that we wanted to make sure were addressed. I'm still waiting to hear back from them on those questions. So we're not ready to actually sign anything today. But if those questions come back answered in a way that that Best and Krieger feels has been answered correctly and is in good shape for Marin LAFCo, I would ask for the authority to actually sign those papers. And that's what the resolution you have in front of you is, a resolution that they need in order to get in order for us to join their program should all the answers come back clean for us.
Okay, any questions for staff? Commissioner Bailey?
I'm totally okay with the concept here, but I think it would have been useful, and if it was in here, I missed it, to know what are those fees? So what % do they recover? What is the annual rate of return that they enjoy? There's an obligation by the board here to do a little more than just approve something. I think we ought to have a sense of what we're approving a little deeper than that if it's available. So I appreciate the sentence that appeared in the staff report that all costs would be borne by any employees choosing to enroll, but what are those costs? And by the way, is it anticipated that Marin LAFCo will be contributing as well, a matching, or who knows? A little more detail would be useful, that's all.
457, a deferred comp, has no matching ability. That's a 401k system. So there would be no cost, there's no ability for us to do matching. If the commission wished to set up a program like that and wanted to have matching for its employees, that is a completely different discussion that gets into our budget as well. So happy to have that discussion if that's the direction we may want to go down in the future. This was the one that is kind of the simplest from a Marin LAFCo business perspective. It doesn't have any cost borne onto them. As far as the costs go, there is a chart that depends on how much money you have in your account, depends on how much you pay. So it starts off, I believe, at 0.7% is what the administrative costs are. But as you grow your account, that percentage starts to drop.
Okay, Sashi, may I ask another question?
Yes. please.
And are there alternative programs that you considered, or hearing that Marin used Nationwide, which that's good enough?
That seemed to be, there are other programs that are out there, but given that Nationwide understands Marin County's HR and payroll systems, it seemed to be the easiest one to do. We're only 3 employees, so you're not going to get a lot of competition for 3 employees having to learn a whole new system and figuring out how to navigate it. Nationwide seemed to me to be the best. And for the most part, most of these systems are almost identical to each other in nature. There's not a lot of difference between the companies when they're creating these governmental programs because they all run relatively the same.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So it appears that the only investment is an annuity. Is that acceptable to your staff? I mean, it seems like it's the best investment in the world.
There are some options that staff will have for having, if they want to have a consultant help them figure out some more complex ways to do stuff. There are options in the system for them to do that. There are a little bit higher costs to do that, but that is up to the employee to decide if they wanted to go down that path. So those are options that are actually available in the system.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mala, just to confirm my understanding, this does not create any obligation on the part of Marin LAFCo, financial obligation?
That is correct.
Okay.
The fees and whatnot will be borne by the individuals
Borne by the
who
individual.
participate.
Yeah, and
correct.
as Commissioner Bailey brought up, there's no obligation for us to fund it, so there's no financial obligation associated with this. Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Correct.
And as I've been flipping through the packet, if you go to Commissioner Bailey, if you go to page 100, there's actually the breakdown of the cost based on how much money you have in there. And I'm mistaken, it's actually 0.65%, not 0.7% is where things get started at. And then it drops down by 0.05% based on how much money you have in there.
Thank you. All right. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Would anyone like to make a
I'll
motion?
move that we approve the attached resolution.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bailey, seconded by Commissioner Arnold. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes. Item 7, please.
Sure. Item 7 is, as you know, at a previous meeting, we approved a new personnel policy, or a new policy handbook. In that process, we separated out our personnel section and created its own handbook. And that section has not actually been updated for quite a number of years, as far as I can tell. It's at least 7 or 8 years old, is to my best telling of when things were last approved. And it could actually have been longer than that. So what the Personnel and Policy Committee, and talking with Chair McEntee, who also happens to chair that committee, we are going to need a little bit of help making sure that the personnel section is up to code and up to snuff and is in good shape. So one of the things that we are looking to do is look at who else provides services that could potentially help us. I did look at 3 different providers. One was Best and Krieger. One was
RGS.
RGS, thank you.
Regional Government Services.
Yeah, Regional Government Services, which does a lot of stuff with a lot of local agencies in Marin County. And then the third one was LCW, who are the folks who have helped us in the past on personnel issues. And looking at what the options were, LCW actually has a pre-written personnel section handbook that you can do. What they do is, if you look in one of the attachments to this agenda item was a list of over 200 different policies that we could choose from, already pre-written, already vetted, already basically done. If we take those, it's $1,000 starting, they are changing their program a little bit, and it becomes an even better deal for us starting July 1st. So I'm not going to institute anything if we approve it tonight until July 1st. But it's $1,000 for a year to be able to have access to that handbook and pull whatever policies we want. If we ever want to edit, modify, change, or add something new to it, we are allowed to do so. It's up to us to what we want to do. To the degree we want to have them review it, they then charge us a fee, an hourly fee, to do whatever review of any edits that we want to do. This seemed to be the most cost-effective way to get a good policy handbook. There are a lot of things, and there's maybe one or two things they might be missing. Like if we wanted to have a discussion about a telecommuting type policy, I didn't seem to notice one on their list, but I haven't actually seen like the actual words to all their policies, because those they hold dear to their vest until they actually get agreement from us. They did send us one policy sample just so I could see what it was, and it seemed like it was a very good sample of what the type of stuff we would get. So my recommendation would be is that we use that policy, that we use their service to do that. The other two provide BBK and RGS, where basically we start from kind of scratch and they help us write new ones. Both of them came in about the same general price, high 6,000, somewhere in the mid 6,000s to low 7,000s, depending on exactly how detailed and how much we really wanted to do, because they're charging you by the hour. So my recommendation, if we were to go down this path and give the Personnel and Policy Committee a hand in doing this work, would be to go with the LCW blueprint, which is take a pre-written one, pick out which ones we want. Some of the items that you'll see on that 200 list, we would never put in our policy handbook. There are things like dealing with police and fire overtime and things like, we just don't have those services, so you don't need to pull them. But there are other ones that perhaps if we were writing from scratch, we would not put in our policy handbook, but since they're available to us for basically free at that point, we would. Like right now, we don't have any mothers or anything like that, or mothers with small babies where you have to deal with like lactation rooms, but we could pull those policies out and put them into our thing. So in the future, if we ever have someone like that, it's already in our policy handbook. We don't have to worry about writing that stuff later.
Okay, any questions?
Sashi, I'll
Yes,
just make a comment.
Commissioner Guy.
I've used services like the LCW before.
Yeah.
There was focused toward technology companies, and we used it. It was very effective. It was very cost effective. It was participative, and so it really worked pretty well. And so of the three options you're talking about, I'd probably go with that one.
Okay. Commissioner Moody?
Do you have access to any other LAFCO's policies that you could cookie cut from?
We have access to every other LAFCO's policy handbook that we want. The question is, how well were they vetted prior to being written? Would be the question that we just don't necessarily have a good answer to.
All right, and the other question is, you still have to have legal review even if you hire this company of your policies.
I would argue that we would already have the legal review because they wrote the policies and all we're doing is pulling out what they wrote. If we modified them or edited them in any way, then yes, there would be a legal review I would want to have at that point. But if it's limited in nature, you're not having as many hours to review those edited ones.
Thank you.
Mala, what we have right now is, we're not sure is whether it is in date, up to date or not. But what they're offering is an annual fee, right, for the $1,000? Is that correct?
Yeah, there would be an annual fee of $1,000 if we wanted to continue to do it every single year. Reality is what we may do is say, we're going to do it this year, wait 2 or 3 years, come back and then say, hey, we're going to go back and pay you $1,000 again for a year and see what got changed or updated in our current policy handbook. We don't necessarily have to do every year with them. It's a 1-year agreement.
What does that mean? Is it $1,000 and you can keep it forever, or is it $1,000 and every year will give you the most up to date? Is that?
From what I understand, and I will definitely double check before we would agree to anything, is we pay $1,000 per year and then we can keep whatever we use for that year.
For that, no, but can we?
We can keep it for as long as we want, because
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are able to keep it for as long as we want. Now, every year things get changed at the state legislature, so they are every year changing their stuff.
Got it.
We wouldn't have access to any changes that occurred, but we would, if you did every 2 or 3 years, you could potentially save a little bit of money, or even if
Fine. Yeah,
we
that's
did,
what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Okay. And the others are just, it's $6,000 to create something from scratch, and then with no updates.
Correct. If we did updates,
Okay.
we would pay them per the hourly rate for any updates we did.
Okay. All right, that makes a lot more sense. All right, thank you. Would anyone like to make, is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt LCW for creating the service to provide personnel manual.
Second, please.
Oh, second.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Kais and seconded by Commissioner Loder. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. All right. Right along. Item 8.
Thank you, Chair and members of the commission. Back in January of 2019, you executed an employment agreement for the executive officer services with Mr. Freed. That is expiring on June 30th of this year. So what you have before you is an extension of that agreement. It's a First Amendment. It will be a one-year extension that will go through June 30th of 2020, and the salary will be $150,000. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions? As you recall, we had a negotiation and talked about this before.
Yeah, so Mala, when we discussed the package we were going to offer to Jason, wasn't this part of the discussion that we had there? So this is not a new item. It's one that we've already considered, and there was general support before we did that.
This was considered, and you gave your negotiators direction, and that direction is now what is before you in this First
That's what I
Amendment.
remember, too.
So it's consistent.
For that clarification, any other questions? All right, is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment.
I'll move that we authorize the chair to execute the First Amendment to the Executive Officer Employment Agreement with Jason Freed.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bailey, seconded by Commissioner Rodoni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion
I
passed.
abstain.
Oh, okay, one abstention. All right, thank you very much. MSR update.
Yes, so there are two different MSR items on today's agenda, so I want to make sure that we don't get confused. This is about the MSR schedule and about the MSR schedule only. What you have in front of you, and I will pull it up. Let me just make sure I find the right document for it. Nope, wrong ones. Here we go. So what you have in front of you is, and it's up on the screen now, is the current MSR schedule. You will notice some red line items that are in there. In discussions with the county's flood control and storm drainage, Marin County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, is they felt that their district might be better served if, instead of referring to it as one large district, breaking it up and doing it by with the regions that we already are doing in the earlier part of the 5-year schedule. The reason for that is there are currently 8 flood control zones in the county. All 8 of them are run completely independent of each other. All 8 of them have their own CAC, a Citizens Advisory Committee, that goes with them. And so they don't need to be looked at as one large thing. They feel that they fit more in the philosophy, and I agree with the county staff when I talk with them on this, that it fits better in the feel of the individual zones. And so what you have in front of you is a red line that actually breaks the zones out based on where they're at in region. So what I would look to do is get approval tonight to amend the current MSR schedule, look at all these zones based on where they're physically located, and get rid of the flood control zone master one, which will leave us a nice little hole here at the end of the system, which after we're done with an upcoming, the MSRs that we're about to start, that Jaren's about to start for us, we could have a discussion about maybe this is where we could throw in the water and the Central Marin sewer area districts. Perhaps somehow we do that. We also note that we still have yet to determine when we're going to do fire and a police service study. Maybe that's where we throw in those. So it gives us some room to do some flexibility to do some stuff, but we'll come back and have that discussion later. Tonight is really just about the flood control zones. The one thing I will add is, since we're already, and as you may note, we released the San Rafael draft today, or we will be releasing when we get later. We'll talk about that one. Since I don't want to hold those up for either for San Rafael or Novato, staff would take on what I will refer to as a supplemental MSR to deal with flood controls 6 and 7 in the San Rafael area and flood control zone 1 for the Novato area. Staff will just do those. Those will not be part of the Plan West project. If we were to give it to them, it would be currently out of contract. They would probably ask for more money. I don't think that, now that we're fully staffed, I don't think we need to go down that road anymore. So we would just do a supplemental carve it into what we're doing and have the discussion. I would probably do, since I want Jaron to start working on next year's stuff already, I would probably take on flood control 6, 7, and 1 and just do those reports. Probably have Candace help me out a little bit because she's been looking to expand some of the work she's doing as well. So I think in-house we could very easily take care of these 3 small flood control zones and have a discussion about them as time moves forward. So for tonight's purposes, I'm mainly just looking to have an MSR to update based on what you see on the screen, and we can move forward with those as requested by the flood control zone and recommended by staff.
All right, any questions for staff? No? All right, is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Any further discussion, or anyone like to make a motion?
I'll move this.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Arnold,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Loader. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much, and I want to commend staff for thinking creatively about how to do this and how to make it make sense. I think this is a great idea. Yep. All right. Next item.
Next item is the election of Special District Risk Management Association board members. We are a member of SDRMA through the fact that we buy all of our insurance and liability stuff. That's who we go through. So we are members of them and we get a vote for who serves on their board. They currently have 3 seats open and 5 people running for them. We have the right as members of that group to vote for those members if we so desire. At your seats, you will find, even though Commissioner Murray could not be here tonight, and he apologizes for that, he did look at all the folks and sent me the names of who he, if he were here, would vote for. It's up to you to decide as the board sitting tonight who you wish to vote for, but he at least gave you his comments of who it was that he wanted to do. I didn't really get much information out of him other than he was voting for the 2 incumbents because they were the incumbents and felt that they should be reelected. And then he picked the 3rd person just based on the information that he had in the packet of candidates. So it's up to you to decide tonight if you wish to vote for it. Technically speaking, you could hold off voting tonight and kick it to the next meeting if you wanted to, because ballots don't need to be in until August 21st. But I wanted to put it on tonight so you could have the discussion and make a decision. Staff has no recommendations on this. This is a decision for the board to make.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Commissioner Kais?
Yeah, just a comment for the board. By coincidence, I happen to come up with the same 3, candidates that Craig mentioned. And so if you wanted to go forward with it tonight, I'd have no problem with doing that, but I'll defer to whatever the majority thinks about it.
All right. Any other questions? All right, is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. Commissioner Kais, you want to make open the public comment, close the public comment. Now that the microphone's on, Commissioner Kais, you want to go ahead and make the motion then?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we vote in favor of Mr. Swan, Mr. O'Rourke, and I think it's Ms. Seifert Raffleson for our 3 candidates for SDRMA.
Second?
Moved by Commissioner Kais, seconded by Commissioner Rodoni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. We're cranking through today, you guys. Okay. Debt Committee.
Yes, so as we always like to do, report on anything that happens in any of our committees. Only one committee met since the last meeting, and that was the Disadvantaged Unincorporated Community Ad Hoc Committee, or DUC Committee for short. That was our very first meeting. This came out of our workshop that we did last year of wanting to figure out how do we work with ducks, how do we deal with ducks in Marin County. We had our first meeting. There was a lot of good discussion that went on. There were a few questions that came from commissioners. So staff is currently working on getting those answers, and the duck committee is scheduled to meet again. I believe it is in July when they will be meeting next. And so we'll hopefully at that point have come to a resolution of what a potential policy might be at that point. I just wanted to give you a heads up that the committee is meeting and moving forward, and hopefully should come back in August with a recommendation of what a policy would look like.
Jason, what are the implications of having a local definition of a disadvantaged unincorporated community?
It depends on how the definition works out. If we wanted to define what a disadvantaged community was altogether, it would only be Marin LAFCo that would recognize that definition. No one else would. But if we wanted, we could also set a policy as like Marin LAFCo is going to look at special circumstances where these things occur, and we don't necessarily have a different policy of what a duck actually is. It's just Marin LAFCo could take a policy of like, when there is a duck in the area, we're going to put extra scrutiny on something, or we're going to put extra review into stuff. That is probably the direction that I think the committee is likely going to go in, is just giving ourselves a little more, like making sure people are aware where these exist. And right now, there's really just one disadvantaged community that's recognized, and that is in the Marin City area. There's actually 2 different subsections of Marin City that qualify. So we're really talking about one very tight, small area, but there are other disadvantaged communities, and we could potentially have a discussion about if there's a disadvantaged community anywhere in the county, we're going to take a little extra review when we do our MSRs or do something of that type of a nature, but that's still to be discussed by the committee itself.
Commissioner Pass.
So Jason, if I may be wrong or maybe it's changed, but the Alto neighborhood used to be a duck. Is that no longer the case?
That's not showing up in the data we have.
Okay. Perhaps they've elevated themselves, but that was certainly the case 4 years or so ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
And Nicasio, wasn't Nicasio?
There are some areas that are...
It was
Yeah.
one of those very odd things.
This is one of the things that we've been looking at, and if we really want to get into the details of the duck, there's distance from a city is part of what the issue is. So you actually have some stuff out in West Marin that if it were next to a city would qualify as a duck. But since it's nowhere near a city, it doesn't qualify as a duck. And that's where we might want to have a discussion about a special policy of how do we review these areas and make sure that they're being taken care of, even if they're not next to a city, because they're still disadvantaged.
And you had mentioned to me last week or earlier this week that the purpose of having of defining a community as a disadvantaged unincorporated community would be so that eventually they would be annexed into the neighboring city, or so so they wouldn't be excluded from annexation.
It's more to make sure they don't get excluded from, if you have a city that's expanding out, that they're not wrapping around a disadvantaged community, that if they're expanding out and they're sitting next to a disadvantaged community, they have to take both the disadvantaged community and the non-disadvantaged community at the same time.
Okay. And could you tell everybody who the members of the ad hoc committee are?
The ad hoc committee are Commissioner Rodoni is on it. I believe he's vice chair. Commissioner Murray is the chair, and Commissioner Skelton is the 3rd member.
Brown.
Oh, is it Brown?
No, that's right.
It's Commissioner Skelton is the 3rd member.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other questions for staff? Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public comment. We don't need to make a motion. This is a verbal report. Okay. Move on to public hearing number 12, budget.
Okay, so I'll give my staff report before we open public hearing. In front of you is the final operating budget, or proposed final operating budget for fiscal year 1920. This is almost, I would say, exactly identical to what the proposed budget was. The only small difference in it is we have not spent as much money for Plan West, so the amount of money that we need for professional services for next year needs to go up so we can cover all of Plan West's work that will be completed in the next fiscal year, or had better be completed, or I'm gonna have some serious issues with what's going on. I'm sure you'll be giving me serious issues for it as well. And because of that money needing to go up, we still have extra money in our carry forward fund because we haven't spent all of the money that we were going to spend on it. So that line item also goes up. Outside of that, every other line item, every other part of the budget is exactly the same. I submitted this budget to all of our jurisdictions for their review and comment. No one got back any official comment to me, although I have talked with and seen various, district managers and city managers and stuff like that over the past couple of months. And all of them that I talked with were very pleased and happy to see that we are not doing a single penny increase. Actually, I was realizing it's a few cents short of what we actually charged all the jurisdictions last year. So they're actually getting a little bit of a break. Not much, we're talking pennies, not very much there. So they are actually not seeing any increases, and they are all extremely happy to hear that, because we had been increasing quite a bit over the last few years. And so holding that line was very good. And the part that makes me the proudest of that is we actually are now fully staffed for the first time in at least since 2015. We have not been at our full staffing levels, and we were able to get to full staffing levels and still not have an increase. So that I think is a very good accomplishment, and I thank the Budget Committee for helping make this happen.
And for our new members, can you explain, you review the carry forward balance that is different? Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing that we are doing slightly different, in the past we had always done our applications and our interest had all been part of our budgeting process. And since we have a little bit, since we've had a topsy-turvy few years where we haven't been fully staffed, there's some extra money in the system. Instead of doing this thing where we are hoping that we get enough money in these areas that are never guaranteed, instead what we would do is we would take all the money that we get this year for fees and applications and interest and move that as part of next year's budget. So what we refer to as a carry forward balance allows us to take any money that we've gotten or earned that wasn't planned for, take that, carry it forward, so in the future years, when we're going out and doing our request for money, hopefully that will cover enough will be steady enough to where we're not asking jurisdictions to cover it, they will actually not have to cover that amount. We'll actually know exactly, instead of guessing, we can budget the exact amount that we actually have in our carry forward balance, which will make life a lot easier for budgeting rather than coming to the end of the year and realizing, oh hey, we're about $10,000 short in application fees. How do we now need to tell staff, don't show up a few days out of the year at the end of the year because we can't actually afford to pay you in our current budget. Not something any of the staff actually would want to do or say. They're not aware of that concept. So I came up, this is something I actually did in San Francisco where we actually kept things where we only spent the money that we knew we had, and then if we had extra money, we used it in the following year. It helps keep a much more stable and a much better budgeting system. And it also, what it allows to do is in cases like the Plan West contract where they're not billing us as quickly as they actually need to, they could actually be billing us a little bit faster, we take that money and move it forward as well. So it's part of an easy flow from one year to the next in our budgeting system.
Should I open the public hearing before I ask for questions?
Either way.
Okay, any questions from the commissioner? No?
Yeah, I have one.
Okay, Commissioner Hardy?
Yeah, so has the auditor looked at this new approach, or is this something that that's kind of new this year?
I did talk, before we ever went down this road, I talked with both our bookkeeper and our auditor, and they were both fine with doing this process. The auditor says it's half a dozen of one, six of the other, so either way we go, it didn't matter to them.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll open the public hearing. And seeing no one wishing to speak, we can close the public hearing. All right, and bring it back for a motion.
I'll move that we approve the final budget and authorize staff to transfer $165,000 from the Commission's county and Marin accounts to the Bank of Marin account.
Dennis, are you good?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bailey and seconded by Commissioner Rodoni. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, next public hearing item, the fee schedule.
Yes, so in front of you is a fee schedule. According to the Marin Policy Handbook, we should every 2 years be updating this fee schedule based on my recommendation when I first got started, because that was about when we should have actually been doing this update. I suggested we hold off until we become fully staffed and know all of our true costs. And so the commission agreed with that and held off doing any update until now. Now that we are fully staffed, it was much easier to do a fee schedule knowing exactly what our true cost will be for the next couple of years. So what you have in front of you is a updated fee schedule. It is slightly modified from the past when we made some changes and edits in some areas. Just as I did with the budgeting where I consolidated line items, I did some of the similar stuff. Like it used to be there was a line item for drafting of the staff memo, a line item for review of the staff memo, and a line item for finalizing the staff memo. I just said, we're writing a staff memo. There's no reason to do all those line items. So I squinched some stuff together just to make it a shorter, easier to understand from that perspective fee schedule. I also did a lot of work on like fine-tuning some areas where we have a fee schedule. Let me actually take a step back. We have two different types of fee structures that you can do. You can either do where you do an average of how much it costs to do an individual item, and you just say we're going to charge everyone that average cost. And then you have other types of fees where it's at cost, where it's the amount of time it takes to do it really varies based on the individual request. So you want to do those at cost. We have a combination. Some LAFCos do everything based on an average. Some LAFCos do everything based on at cost. I split that because for me, when you have an average normal application, we get so many of those that the time it takes to actually do the app cost for those, it just drives up the cost quite a bit because you're constantly having to track. I spent a half hour today, I spent an hour the next day, I spent 2 weeks later, I spent an hour doing something. It just takes a lot of extra tracking to do. So the averaging fee one makes sense when we have enough of them and we know what the averages are and they're similar in nature in applications. So your most common one is the notice of exemption with 100% consent, which is basically means normally it's an individual parcel that is changing boundaries. If they're either trying to go into a sewer district, which is the most common one we get, or annexed into a city. Those types of applications where it's one parcel, those are your most basic ones, and those are the ones that you're seeing in that first column up on the screen, where the fee is going to be $29.82. And then additional boundaries, so if you do a dual annexation, you would then start adding a little bit extra. This is something I am adding to this fee schedule that was not in the prior one. In the prior one, we said, on average, we're just going to charge this amount. I said, there's a little bit more of a cost if you're doing 2 boundaries rather than just 1 boundary. So I split it up so the people who only do 1 boundary don't have to pay for 2 boundaries, they're just paying for the 1 in this system. So you can flip through the thing, and I'm happy to answer anything. I mean, it's so technical in nature, I really don't want to spend all night talking to you about it. So there is plenty in here to look at. If people have questions on it, I'm happy to answer it, but I think we got a very good fee schedule put in place now that's very strong, that charges what is the appropriate cost for us to be recovering for all the services that we provide in applications. The one other caveat that I'm asking a question on potentially approval for is how we deal with our jurisdictions that are members of LAFCo and when they submit an application. I'm kind of approaching this in a 2-phase approach. If they are doing something that's based on something that came out of an MSR, I would say let's give them a staff time for free. We probably pretty much spent a lot of our staff time already in the MSR working on the item, so there's not a lot of extra work that's really going to be put on staff to do it. Writing a quick memo, but not much beyond that is really going to be spent, and then recouping any material costs that we have. If, like, let's first say, for example, that we need to send out a public notice because we're annexing a big area and it's not 100% consent, so you have to actually put out a notice for it. We would then charge them for the mailing of that notice. If there's any specific extra work that comes out of legal counsel, we would charge them for the legal counsel services. I want to make sure we're made whole, but I also don't want to be taking more than what we really need from the districts. And also, it's kind of as an added bonus, talk to us when we're doing your MSR. It makes it a lot easier for us to do these things, so it gives them a bonus for bringing these items up during MSR time for them. So that is kind of like the one side note that was not really clear to me, is how applications from districts work. And there are member agencies, I don't want to be charging them for an application after we just did an MSR.
Yeah, and Jason, on the history of this too, we previously had a fee schedule that had some overhead costs and things like that that legal counsel was not totally comfortable with. So there was some philosophical.
I think what is before you definitely represents something that we can defend and is justifiable under the Mitigation Fee Act. So we worked very closely together to make sure that this.
Yeah, so there was a, I guess what I'm driving at is there was a reason we needed to update our fee schedule. We needed to also kind of restructure it.
I think it was good to restructure it, and then as you heard from the executive officer, I'm sorry, it's always good to review your fee schedule periodically.
And you're proposing that we review it now every 2 years? Yeah.
Marin, your policy handbook actually states you should review it every 2 years.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? All right. Yeah, Commissioner Rodoni.
Jason, I didn't notice this till just tonight. Can you explain why the emergency outside service agreement is substantially less than the normal process for an outside service extension?
The emergency outside extension really is not a very difficult process from a staff perspective to go through. There are never any hearings here about it. We will inform you when there is one. Marin, the policy handbook that we have actually says when we get one of those, they generally need to occur right away. We can't wait to the next meeting. So the chair has the authority to sign off on it. So you take out a whole bunch of work that does not need to go into a hearing. We don't need to be checking in with everybody every couple of weeks to find some. These stuffs occur within 2 weeks of, like, generally speaking, we get approvals with, the last one we just had one, and I think it was within 3 days the approvals were already given to it. So it's such a quick, short process. You don't need to have it. And what will end up happening in a lot of those cases is they will be an emergency service agreement, and then they will come back to us for a regular thing. So we're going to capture what needs to occur in the regular stuff too.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Seeing no one wishing to speak, we'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion here.
I'm looking for the.
I'll move the update.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Arnold, and
And
seconded
to
by
clarify,
Commissioner.
that is Resolution 1903.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Mala. All right, so moved by Commissioner Arnold, seconded by Commissioner Bailey. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Motion passes. Okay, Executive Officer Report.
Sure. So the next item is our website. As you may have noticed if you read my emails earlier today, we have a new website. It's brand new, just out of the box today. It became live overnight. Very excited, very happy. I want to thank the Website and Technology Committee, which only has currently one member sitting here. Commissioner Caius was the chair of that. We went through and created a new website. I will say it is not 100% perfect yet, but it is much better than the website we had just yesterday. So as you go through it, I encourage you to scroll through stuff, look for things, see what's there, pay attention to it. If you see anything that needs to be updated or corrected, don't hesitate to give us a call or send us an email and say, hey, I noticed that my district has something wrong on it, or this page has, direct us to where it is. Everything that is up here, now there's a nice little panel that tells us we're meeting all government code sections while we're doing it. It's called the transparency page, which is right here. And what you can see is these are all the things that we need to tell people about based on state government code. So they're all right here, and you can click on any one of them and find what you need to do. The rest of the stuff is not required. It's simply out of the nicest of our heart, we give them more information than we're required to. So this for me is stage one of the website issue. Future things that will be coming along is we will continue to make this website better by putting more information on it. And phase two for me is going to be a discussion about trying to create a digital library on our website. Creating something where no one ever has to call us up again to say, I want to learn about a file that was back in the 1970s. We will have all of our information up on this website. We do have some issues to deal with ADA compliance because a lot of the older stuff is just not there. And so I've got to figure out how, if we can do that, and if we can, you're going to see me probably coming back at some point in the future and saying, we need an addition to the website, something that might cost a little bit of money, but something I think that will be well worth it to have us have a library that will give everyone every bit of information that they need. Not that I want to discourage people from coming to talk to staff, but if they want to research something, they won't need to talk to staff to do it. So that is kind of a future long-term goal of mine, but as of today, at least, we have a new website that I think is very good and will support the future needs of Marin LAFCo. That's all I got.
Oh, all right, and
This is a verbal report only, so there's nothing
okay.
to approve.
Are you moving on to the next item?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's right. We're in executive officer's report now.
Yeah.
The next item that we have is the budget update. We are in good financial shape. We have not spent our full budget yet. We're actually a little bit, from a lack of a better term, behind schedule, partly due to Plan West not using all of their money. But we will be on track to be in a good budget shape and maybe have a little bit left over by the end of the year. When things work up, you have the attachments in the document. If anyone has any questions on any of these items, kind of raise your hand and I'll stop. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to roll through each of the items. Yep. So then under current and pending proposals, I have some updates for you on that have actually occurred since I wrote that, one of which is actually happening right now as we speak. You may remember the 400 Upper Toyon Road, the detachment from San Rafael, annexation into Ross, had been sitting in front of our commission for a very long time. Since our last meeting, the City Council for San Rafael approved a tax exchange agreement. That tax exchange agreement tonight is in front of the Town of Ross, thank you. Is in front of the Town of Ross, and so they are reviewing it. Once both of them agree, should they both agree to a tax exchange agreement, I would then be bringing that application forward to you for approvals. I'm waiting to see what happens tonight. There were some last minute questions that came up
Good job looking ahead on the MMWD properties and making sure we don't create an island, so thank you very much.
My pleasure. And then the other part of, that you will see that there was another new proposal for 476 Paradise Drive. This one may get a little sticky, it may take a little bit of time to get through. It is a dual annexation. The parcel wants to go into both Sanitary District Number 2 and wants to also be annexed into the town of Tiburon. The town of Tiburon this week sent me a memo with 23 questions and comments. I am still reviewing those questions and comments. They, right now, as it sits, are not supportive of annexing this parcel into the town. I will note this parcel is in an unincorporated island within Tiburon, and it borders Tiburon itself. So this would be a perfect example of where we should be actually doing a dual annexation based on Marin LAFCo policy, based on state government code. We should be going down that path. I will work with the town of Tiburon to see if I can't work through what their issues are so we can get it annexed in, because it really should be an annexation. But I will come back to you in the future. There is also a bigger picture issue that will come up with this one. It is on Paradise Drive, and if you ever look at a map of between the city and county limits, Paradise Drive is something that gets checkerboarded between city and county. There are actually places where the city, or where the county controls the road, but the city or the town, excuse me, has the property on both sides of the road. And this is, to me, is a much bigger issue that should be addressed, and we're looking at addressing it in the MSR. They happen to be next fiscal year MSRs, so this will be actually a good time to do it. So I'm debating whether or not whether we want to try and divorce this from that discussion, have it be part of the bigger discussion with the MSR, or whether we need to resolve that with this individual parcel at this time. So there will be a lot going on with this one as it moves forward, and I'll bring back more updates as time goes on. The other one that we have is a annexation of a parcel that wants to get into the Novato Sanitary District. If you look at a map, they are the one dot on their entire street that is not currently in the Sanitary District. This one, I kind of gave special permission to the Sanitary District to take action on it without finishing the process, and that's because they're about to repave the street, and the city of Novato basically said, you can't dig up the street for the next X number of years. And so what we're allowing to occur is for them to put in I believe it's called a stub or a hub or something like that, that connects to the property, but they can't connect the house to that until they've gone through our process. So at least they will get that hub, that first part in before they were able to get it in before the street got repaved. And then after this process is over, they will then be able to connect the house to it. Stub, thank you. So I kind of told the Novato Sanitary, go ahead and do that, because I understand what's going on here. It'll take our process much longer to do than the amount of time they have to physically get in under the street before it occurs. So that process is already starting with them, but we will come back to you. That we just got all of the final paperwork on that this week, and so it's already been sent out for comment to all the districts in the city and everyone else. So by the next meeting, I'm hopeful that this should be a quick and easy one. We'll have something for your approval at that time. And those are my updates on current and pending proposals. I will actually, there's actually one more. I got a random email today, and I haven't gotten full confirmation on this, but I think for file 1324, that's the 1501 Lucas Valley Road, the Water District one, that they finally have come to an agreement. This is one that's been sitting in front of us for a couple of years. They've done some extensions. of their file. And I think now it sounds like the applicant has agreed to what MMWD wants to see happen. And so that this application, it's already been approved by the commission based on a condition that MMWD and the applicant come to an agreement. Once I get that agreement in hand, Candace will actually send it off to county recorder, send it to the Board of Equalization after that, and that file will actually be completely done and off of our list of things to complete. So that's exciting news there on that one. And then for the next quick update, the verbal report update, special district elections. As you're all aware, we had in May
What about the MSR?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I skipped one there. The MSR update. As you may have seen today, I sent around a copy of the draft, what will become the public draft MSR for San Rafael. The question I kind of have, and as I would like to see a little bit of discussion with the commission about, is what we would like to see done with when we hold the public hearing for it. I know that the commission said they at least want 30 days. So if I were to release it today, that would mean some point in the second half of July would be when we would, at the earliest, have it. Our regular meeting in August is when we would meet on August 8th. So there's a small window when we can do a special meeting, or we could just decide, you know what, let's just go ahead and put it on the August agenda, and we will do our hearing then on it. Supervisor Conley, who could not be here tonight, was fine with it being on the August one. And I know I heard from one of the commissioners who's here tonight, so I'll let him speak for himself. And I heard from Commissioner Brown, I believe it was, who was also fine with it being on August 8th if needed. But he was also open to it being a special meeting if we wanted as well.
And then you had mentioned that we're going to be at several applications, that we're going to have a few public hearings.
We would potentially have 2 or 3 applications in front of us, partly depending on what occurs with the dual annexation in Tiburon. That might be one less because that could change things up a little bit, but the other 2 would be simple ones if we had them on our agenda.
Okay. Anybody have any thoughts on whether to have a special meeting or whether to do it at the August meeting? Commissioner Kynes?
Yeah, I will just follow up on Jason's comment. I have memories of some of these MSR reviews and public hearings from the past, and they can go on and on and on and on. They can be long. And so my only thought is that we not have this public hearing on an agenda with another meeting that already has a pretty full schedule, because otherwise we're getting into 3 or 4 hour kind of board meeting potentially. So if the August agenda is what I'll call light, then I would also support it being August. If the August agenda is already known to be a heavier agenda with other things that would then be a really prolonged meeting, I would suggest we have a special meeting for it so we can focus attention on that, especially because it's a Plan West document. It's the first one they've done. So it's going to be a little bit of a new process, so I'm expecting it's going to take a little longer than if Jared were to do one. But that's my only thought about it.
Right now, from what I can tell, August meeting should be light. The only thing that might not make it light is if the dual annexation application came to us. I honestly think if it's going to be contentious, we will not be ready in the August meeting for that one to come in front of us. So I think the 2 applications that I'm looking at right now seem to be pretty straightforward. We can move through them pretty quickly without too much effort. And I don't think there's really much else on the agenda right now. Like most of the stuff is in April and June is when we have a lot of heavy items. I don't anticipate right now there being a lot of other items on the agenda.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Okay, so sounds like everybody's pretty happy with putting it on the August agenda.
Okay.
Okay.
And then just one other quick question. We can either have Plan West show up in person, or if we wanted to be a little bit tricky on the budget, because of the room we meet in August, we could very easily do a video conference with them. So I'd just be curious, and Plan West is fine coming down here if they want, but there are costs associated with having them come down here compared to if they're just in their office participating.
How much does it cost to have?
I haven't really costed out, but we would be paying for travel and potentially a hotel room overnight, and their time for travel. There's costs that get associated with all of that, but I haven't penciled out what the cost would be.
Depending on what the costs are, I think for the first one, it seems like it would be a good idea to have them here. But
Okay.
I think maybe you bring us.
Okay. So
Actually, so we wouldn't have that before, yeah, so we'd have to.
I mean, I can sit down and talk, I can try and pencil out what the cost would be and sit down and talk with you between meetings. I don't,
Anybody have any thoughts on that since there are costs involved? No? No? Okay. All right. So then you and I will talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Special district.
all right, so special district elections, in April, we held the special district elections. As we can tell by who's in the room tonight, Commissioner Caius won the most votes for the regular seat. And Commissioner Moody, because no one else actually ran against him, won the alternate seat. So I want to welcome and congratulate both of them on their elections. We actually did have a very robust turnout. I was actually very happy and surprised with the number of districts that ended up voting. It wasn't 100% of them, but it was I think one of the highest turnouts we've had in a very long time for special districts. It did.
Yeah, Commissioner Caius, you attended each of the district meetings, was
I
it?
went to lots of them. I attended a lot of the special district board meetings to personally go out and encourage them to vote, and if they were going to vote anyway, they may as well vote for me. But the end result was that a lot of districts that don't normally vote and haven't voted in the past did make the effort to make a ballot. Districts like Muir Beach and Stinson Beach and Marin Wood and some others. And so it did increase the number of participants.
Well, thank you for that, Commissioner Caius. That's really great.
Perfect.
Okay.
And then the last item that is on the agenda is correspondence. All the correspondence that we have in the agenda is letters that we sent to Sacramento based on legislation that we have taken positions on. As I mentioned, whenever we do these letters, I will always put them in our packets so you are aware of what letters have been sent. Sacramento is buzzing and humming. I think one of the bills we opposed did not make the transfer to the other chamber. And so that's a good thing when it gets stuck. It means it's a 2-year bill at the very least, if not dead permanently. So those correspondence are in there, and that's all I have to report in the executive officer's report.
All right. Very good. Any questions? No? Any commissioner announcements and requests? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right, moved by Commissioner Bailey, seconded by Commissioner Rodoni. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.